This all started back in 2015. Lena was 28, I had just turned 25. We'd been together 6 years, married for 3. We met back in college. She was working toward a degree in accounting and I was deep into mechanical engineering. Our paths first crossed at a party thrown by a friend we both knew. From that night on, we clicked. After just a few dates, we made it official. A year later, we were husband and wife. Lena had an older sister, Tessa, who was married to a guy named Ryan, one of her longtime friends. But the real challenge in our relationship didn't come from them. It came from Lena's mom, Margot. She never liked me, not from day one. Right off the bat, she was looking for reasons to drive a wedge between us. I could sense the disapproval in her eyes, but I never really figured out what I'd done wrong. She'd constantly make little digs, stuff like, Lena deserves someone better, or you're not good enough for her. It cut deep. After a while, it really started to wear me down. Still, despite all that, I thought I had it made. Lena was everything I'd ever wanted, beautiful, brilliant, and hands down the most amazing woman I'd ever met. I had a stable job as a mechanical engineer, and life felt solid. We'd made a mutual decision to wait on having kids. We wanted to travel, knock out the mortgage, enjoy life a little before taking that step. She was totally on board. In fact, she'd even started talking about going back for her master's. I was all for it. I told her I'd cover the costs. I just wanted her to feel like she could chase her dreams with my full support. But about a year into our marriage, things started to shift. Lena's mom had a fall, nothing life-threatening, but she was hospitalized for a couple days. The doctor said she'd be fine, just needed some rest at home. Lena was beside herself with worry. I could see how much it rattled her. She moved in with her mom for a while to help out, and even though I missed having her around, I understood. She needed to be there. Then came the anniversary party. Lena's parents were throwing a big celebration for their 35th wedding anniversary. And that night? It was intense. 2 announcements were made that completely blindsided me. First, Tessa opened up about her long struggle with infertility. She said she'd been to countless doctors and clinics, trying everything, but nothing had worked. Watching her fight back tears as she shared her pain, it was gut-wrenching. One of those moments where you feel helpless, like you'd give anything to ease their burden, but there's just nothing you can do. Then Margot stood up, and what she said next hit me like a sucker punch. I always knew she wasn't the warmest person emotionally, but this was different. Her eyes welled up, and with a shaky voice, she told everyone how badly she wanted to be a grandmother. There was this desperation in her words I hadn't seen before. One more fall could be the end of me, she said. And I might never get the chance to see my daughter have kids. I glanced over at Lena. She looked like the floor had dropped out from under her. Her face had gone pale, her eyes wide, and her hand trembled as she picked up her wine glass. But the drink wasn't calming her nerves. Her mom's words had clearly gotten to her. Deep. That night, after we got home, she barely spoke. It was like her mind was stuck replaying everything that had happened. I tried to give her space at first, but eventually I sat down beside her and asked softly, Lena, are you all right? She turned to me, tears in her eyes. I don't know, Ethan, she said, voice barely a whisper. I really don't. Is it your mom? I asked gently. She nodded, her voice cracking. She's right. She's not gonna be around forever. And Tessa, she's hurting so bad. I don't know what to do. I pulled her into a hug, held her close. We don't have to decide anything right now, I told her. We'll figure it out. Together. But even as I said that, something inside me knew things had changed. Something had shifted in her, and I wasn't sure what it meant. Still, I pushed that feeling down. I ignored it. Looking back now, I wish I hadn't. Time moved on. A few weeks turned into months, and things seemed to settle down. No big changes until one day I got a call from Lena. Her voice was trembling. Ethan. I'm at the hospital, she said, trying to keep it together. My heart sank. What's going on? It's Tessa, she choked out. She tried to hurt herself. I froze, fear tightening in my chest like a vice. Are you okay? I asked, though it made no sense. She wasn't the one in danger. I'm okay, she replied quickly. But she's in critical condition, Ethan. I need you here. I'm coming, I said right away, doing my best to sound calm, even though my mind was racing. I didn't want her to hear the panic in my voice. I left work immediately and rushed to the hospital. When I arrived, I found Lena in the waiting room. Her face was pale, her eyes red and puffy from crying. Margot was there too, standing off to the side, arms crossed, that same cold, unreadable look on her face. Something about the way she was staring at me didn't sit right. It felt like she was blaming me. I couldn't explain it, but it was there in her eyes. Like I had something to do with Tessa's breakdown. I walked over to Lena and pulled her into a hug. Tried to comfort her. But I could still feel Margot's glare burning into my back. Ryan was there too, along with Victor and Margot's husband, but none of them made the atmosphere feel any lighter. The tension in that room was thick, almost suffocating. And Margot's coldness? It stayed with me. What happened? I asked, keeping my voice low. Lena's voice shook as she answered. It's the infertility, Ethan. Tessa's been carrying that pain for years. But after hearing her mom go on about wanting grandkids, something in Tessa just broke. The weight of it all, everything she'd been carrying, it was too much. She just couldn't take it anymore. And man, that hit me hard. I felt this sick, heavy feeling in my chest. I couldn't begin to imagine what she was dealing with, but I knew that kind of pain had to run deep. 2 days later, Tessa was released from the hospital. She still looked shaken up, but physically she was okay. The doctors had put her on antidepressants, something to help her cope with the aftermath. That weekend, the whole family got together at Margot's place to talk things through. The tension in that room was unbearable. It was like everyone wanted to say something, but no one knew how to start. There were awkward stares, long silences. It felt like the air itself was weighed down. And right there in the middle of it all, the topic of grandchildren came up again. Tessa's struggle was still fresh in everyone's mind, and Margot's emotional outburst at the party was still echoing loud and clear. I sat there for a moment, thinking hard about whether I should say anything. I knew it might stir the pot, but I really believed it was worth bringing up. What if you and Ryan thought about adoption? I said gently, trying to sound as supportive as I could. It could be a way to bring a child into your life, even if they're not biologically yours. It could still mean a lot. I tried to explain it in a way that made sense. That adoption was real. That it could bring joy, not just to Tessa and Ryan, but to all of us. And then, silence. Like dead silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone turned and looked at me, and it was clear my idea wasn't landing well. Still, I stood by it. But then Margot turned toward me, eyes narrowing like I'd just insulted the entire family. Adopt a child, she snapped. That's not the same as having a grandchild of our own blood. Her tone was sharp. A real grandchild. One born into this family. Her words stung. It felt like she slapped me right across the face, right there in front of everyone. I tried to stay calm, tried not to let the frustration show. I wasn't saying adoption was second best. I just wanted to help them build the family they so clearly wanted. But Margot wasn't hearing a word of it. Her mind was made up. After that, the conversation just died. Nobody said much of anything. No other suggestions, no one else spoke up. It was like the room just deflated. The tension was crushing, and I could feel it sitting heavy on my chest. We all left not long after, and Lena didn't say much on the ride home. Her silence told me everything. I knew she was just as upset as I was. In the weeks that followed, something shifted. Tessa and Ryan started coming over to our place a lot more than usual. At first, I figured it was just family sticking close after everything that happened. But their visits started to feel off. I'd hear them whispering in the kitchen with Lena, and the moment they'd walk into the living room, it'd all go quiet. The way they acted, it didn't feel right. It felt like there was some secret they were keeping from me, something I wasn't supposed to know. And not knowing made it worse. It put this weird pressure in the pit of my stomach. At first, I tried to brush it off. I told myself maybe Tessa just needed her sister right now. But over time, even Lena began acting strange. She got secretive with her phone, started putting it down when I walked into the room, flipping it face down like it was second nature. She pulled away when I tried to get close. Our physical connection, which had always been solid, started fading fast. There was this growing distance between us, and I couldn't quite figure out why. Something was wrong, I could feel it, but I couldn't name it. Then came May 4th. A date I'll never forget. I was driving home from work, and as I turned onto our street, I saw a bunch of unfamiliar cars parked out front. My stomach dropped. I didn't know what was going on, but it sure didn't feel good. I rushed into the house, and there they all were, my in-laws, Tessa and Ryan, everyone gathered in the living room. Their faces were serious, like they'd been waiting for me. Lena stepped forward first. "Sit down. We need to talk," she said, her voice tight and cold. I glanced around the room. Every single one of them was watching me, and not in a good way. My heart started to race. "What's this about?" I asked cautiously. But before I could get another word out, Margot cut in. "What solution do you have for us?" she demanded. Her tone was biting, aggressive. I blinked, totally confused. "What are you talking about?" She looked over at Lena, then turned her icy gaze back to me. "Your grandchildren," she said, her words landing like daggers. I felt the blood rush to my head. "Grandchildren? Again?" I was completely thrown off. I don't understand," I said, trying to keep up. Still reeling, I decided to share something I'd been thinking about for a while. "Maybe we should look into IVF?" I offered. "I know it's not a guarantee, but it might give us a chance." Margot's face twisted like I'd just cursed at the dinner table. That judgmental glare she always wore was back and stronger than ever. She shook her head slowly, almost like she was talking to herself. No. No. Then she looked straight at me and her eyes lit up with something I can only describe as cruel determination. I have another solution. My heart skipped. My mind was spinning, trying to guess what twisted plan she had in mind. I looked at Lena, searching her face for reassurance, for support, something. But she wasn't looking at me. Her eyes moved from Tessa, then to Margot, then back again. There was something unreadable in her expression. I followed her gaze to Tessa, and that's when I saw it. She was smiling. Smiling. Ryan was sitting next to Tessa, and the smug grin on his face was almost unbearable. He leaned back in his chair like he owned the room, radiating this arrogant confidence that made my skin crawl. The air in the room was heavy, so thick with tension it was hard to breathe. And the worst part? I had no idea what was about to happen. I waited, expecting Lena to say something, to at least give me a hint of what this was all about. But she just stared at the floor, her face unreadable, like she wasn't even in the room. Then, out of nowhere, she snapped. "Idiot! Say something." Her words hit me like a slap. I flinched, not sure what I'd done to deserve that. I didn't answer right away. I was still trying to piece everything together to understand why she was so furious. The silence that followed was unbearable. And then Margot, so calm, so cold, started speaking again, and every word she said made my blood run cold. "As you know, dear," she said to Lena, "Tessa has been cursed with the inability to give us grandchildren. That joy of motherhood, it's something she'll never experience." Her voice dripped with judgment, like it was somehow a burden everyone else had to carry. Lena jumped in, her tone sharp and tight. "We've looked into other options," she said, though I could tell something else was going on behind her eyes. "But surrogacy, it's risky. There could be genetic issues passed down, complications we don't want to deal with." She looked drained, like she hadn't slept in days. Then Ryan chimed in, of course. He never missed a chance to make things worse. "Surrogacy's too expensive anyway," he said with a shrug. "Especially with everything else a kid needs these days." I was still trying to keep up, trying to make sense of what they were building up to. But I wasn't just going to sit there and be steamrolled. "So what exactly are you proposing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady even though my gut was twisting. That's when Margot dropped the bombshell. "Since you've refused to have children," she said smoothly, "Lena will carry Ryan's baby." Time froze. Just like that. My brain couldn't register the words. They echoed in my head like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. Lena. Pregnant. With Ryan's child. I looked at her, my wife, the woman I'd built my life with, but she wouldn't even look back at me. Her eyes stayed glued to the floor. She didn't move. She didn't speak. And that silence between us, it was louder than anything I'd ever heard. My thoughts were racing. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could do was stare at the people in front of me and wonder how we'd gotten here. I kept hoping, begging in my head, that this was some kind of twisted joke. But it wasn't. Margot just kept going, her voice as steady as ever, like what she was saying was totally normal. "We understand you don't want to raise the baby," she said coldly. "Don't worry. Once it's born, we'll register it under Tessa and Ryan's name." I was in complete shock. Numb. I didn't know whether to cry or scream or run. I just wanted to wake up. I wanted this to not be real. But she wasn't done. "Children aren't products," she continued, in that self-righteous tone of hers. "They're not supposed to be made in a lab. They should come from love, a connection between two people." She paused, then added, with horrifying clarity, "That means through intimacy. The natural way." The room felt like it was spinning. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She started quoting religious rules, talking about the church's rejection of artificial conception, how a child born through scientific means would be condemned. Hell and damnation. All that. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like I was suffocating in my own house. I stood up, fists clenched at my sides, and shouted, "No way." My voice boomed through the room, louder than I'd ever heard it. I wasn't the type to yell, but I'd reached my breaking point. I turned to Lena, desperate. "What do you want to tell me?" I asked, my voice raw. She looked up, her eyes flickering with something between fear and guilt. But she didn't say a word. Not one. That silence from her? It crushed me. Because that's when I knew. She wasn't on my side. She wasn't fighting for me. She wasn't even trying to. Margot stepped forward, clearly surprised by my outburst, but still trying to explain herself like this was all perfectly reasonable. I didn't want to hear it. Not one more word. That's when Ryan walked up and tried to put a hand on my shoulder. "Don't touch me," I snapped, stepping back. My anger was right there, boiling over. Then came the final insult. "We respect your decision not to have children," Margot said, her voice dripping with condescension. But you're still young, full of energy, and curious about life. So Ryan will take care of this. I froze. What? What the hell was she talking about? She kept going like she hadn't just shattered everything. Tessa agrees. Their son should be conceived through love naturally. Between Lena and Ryan. That was it. That was the moment I finally snapped. You're insane, you twisted old witch. I shouted, my voice cracking from the sheer rage boiling inside me. The room went silent like someone had hit pause on the world. Nobody said a word. Tessa let out a sharp gasp while Lena's face twisted with fury. But there was something else behind her eyes, something I couldn't quite place. Was it regret? Maybe guilt? I wasn't sure. I didn't have time to figure it out. Ryan, who kept quiet long enough, leaned forward with that same smug smirk he always wore. Come on, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. It'll be fun. That was it. I don't even remember standing up. 1 second I was sitting, the next I launched at him. My fist connected with his jaw before he had time to flinch and he hit the floor hard. Everything exploded. Tessa screamed. Lena was shouting too. The sound of chaos rang in my ears, but all I could feel was the surge of adrenaline racing through my veins. Get the hell out of my house. I roared, my throat raw from yelling. I didn't wait for their reaction. I stormed off to the bedroom and slammed the door shut, locking it behind me. I could still hear their voices shouting in the distance, shocked, angry, panicked. A few minutes later, I looked out the window and watched as they all left. One by one. Then, bam, the bedroom door flew open. Lena walked in, her face flushed, trembling with fury. But underneath all that anger, there was something else. Pain. I didn't care. You insulted my mother, she yelled, her voice shaking. I stared at her, stunned. She was furious about my words, but not the fact that her entire family had just tried to convince me to let her sleep with her sister's husband. That didn't matter to her? I'd had enough. You're seriously ignoring the part where they tried to manipulate me into letting you have sex with your brother-in-law? I shot back, my voice hoarse, burned out from screaming. She didn't say a word. Just glared at me like I was the villain in all of this. The rest of that day? Dead silence. Later that night, after I'd cooled down a bit, I went to see my best friend, Dylan. I needed to breathe. I needed someone who wasn't completely insane. He listened quietly like he always did. Let me get it all off my chest. Then he looked at me and said, this isn't just dysfunction, Ethan. This is deception. And your mother-in-law? She's the root of it. I nodded, feeling the truth sink in. He was right. Margot was at the heart of all this madness. Then Dylan suggested something that, at the time, felt drastic. Maybe it's time to get out of here, he said. Leave the city. Take Lena. Put some distance between you and that toxic mess of a family. The less influence they have, the better your chances. I'd been thinking the same thing, trying to figure out how to escape the pain, the pressure. It didn't sound crazy. It sounded like a lifeline. But I didn't know if I was ready to just run away. Still, I couldn't ignore the appeal of peace. That evening, when I got home, I saw Lena sitting alone at the kitchen table. Her eyes were red and puffy. She'd clearly been crying for a while. I stopped in my tracks. That familiar knot of guilt twisted in my gut. Lena, I said softly. She looked up slowly, eyes filled with tears. My mom. She's been hospitalized, she said, voice trembling. She's in critical condition. And without thinking, I snapped. That old witch can die. And I hope it hurts. The words came out before I could stop them. Cold, bitter, ugly. The moment they left my mouth, I regretted them. But it was too late. I said it. I couldn't take it back. Lena crumbled, breaking down in front of me. She looked so small in that moment. And all I could do was stand there, watching her fall apart. I didn't mean to hurt you, I muttered. But your mother? I've got zero respect left. She's made that impossible. She wiped her face, looked up at me through glassy eyes. You don't get it, Ethan, she whispered. Tessa's still not okay. She's depressed. I'm scared she'll try to hurt herself again. That shut me up. I didn't know how to handle any of this. I wasn't equipped to fix it. So I just said the only thing I could think of. We'll try, I told her. We'll try to have a baby. Our baby, yours and mine. I didn't want to say it, but I did. Because at that moment, I felt like it was the only option I had left. Lena looked up at me, surprised. Then a small smile spread across her face. Okay, she whispered. We'll try soon. I nodded, but inside, something didn't sit right. Felt like this decision wasn't really about us. It was about keeping the family quiet, calming the storm, and that didn't feel like love. But I couldn't back out now. Not when she looked at me like that, like I'd just given her a reason to hope again. The days rolled on without any more blow-ups. Things got calmer. Lena softened. She was more affectionate, more present. And strangely, she stopped hiding her phone. She'd catch me off guard with a smile here and there, and for a moment, it felt like we were falling in love again. But something about it felt staged, too perfect. I couldn't figure out what was bothering me, but the feeling wouldn't go away. It just lingered in the background. 6 months passed, and somehow, I found myself deeper in love with Lena than I ever thought I could be again. I didn't even know how it happened, it just did. Whatever she asked for, I gave her. A new TV? Done. A spa day? Booked. I didn't even think twice. Was it guilt? Was I trying to patch things up? Probably. But no matter the reason, her happiness became my top priority. Oddly enough, Margot had stopped pushing for grandchildren, and Tessa? She actually seemed to be doing better. I didn't know what changed, but I welcomed the calm. Then I planned something. Something I'd been saving up for. A surprise. A way to show Lena that I still cared. That I wanted to fix whatever was broken between us. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could finally reset everything. January 18th. I walked through the front door gripping the surprise I'd been saving for weeks. Tickets. A trip. Something to breathe new life into us. Something that said, I still believe in us. But the moment I stepped inside, something didn't feel right. The house was silent, eerily so. At first, I figured maybe Lena had just stepped out for a minute. But as I moved upstairs, the uneasiness grew stronger. Something was off. I made it to our bedroom and froze. There was a note lying on the bed. My heart sank before I even picked it up. I knew that handwriting. It was hers. Ethan, you can see that nothing in our relationship has changed. I love you more than ever. I know you love me too. My mother has grown to appreciate you in her own way. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the paper trembling in my hands as I kept reading. But Tessa, she can't find happiness. The guilt of not giving her a child is destroying her. I didn't tell you before, but I know you'll understand. You've matured so much these past few months, and I know you love me enough to accept this. My parents, Tessa and Ryan, were going through with what we planned 6 months ago. Today, we're leaving town. I'm going to get pregnant by Ryan. Couldn't breathe. My pulse was pounding in my ears, and the words blurred as my eyes scanned them again and again. I won't tell you where we're going. You'd come after us. You'd be stressed. Ryan would be stressed. That's not what we need. Tessa says he gets anxious and we might not conceive right away. That's why we're leaving for a month. Don't try to find us. I'll come back when I'm pregnant. This doesn't change anything between us. We'll pretend like it never happened. No one in the family knows. It'll stay between us. I just sat there frozen, completely hollowed out. A tidal wave of shame, disbelief, and pain crashed over me all at once. It was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. I won't sugarcoat it, it hurt like hell. But beneath the pain, I saw the truth for the first time. This wasn't about love. There was no trust left between us. No respect. It was all about meeting her mother's expectations like I was just some side character in their twisted little family story. Yeah, I was angry. But more than anything, I was ashamed that I'd let it get this far. That I'd let Lena and her mother twist the strings until I couldn't even see what was real anymore. I'd been a fool. Eventually, the pain began to shift into something else. Not peace, not closure, just cold, hard indifference. 2 days later, something inside me clicked. These people had manipulated me so well that I didn't even see it happening. They turned me into this obedient, forgiving husband who kept swallowing betrayal after betrayal like it was just part of the deal. But no more. I wasn't that guy anymore. I couldn't sit back in silence. So I got in the car and drove straight to Lena's parents' place. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to say. I just needed answers, needed to face them. But when I pulled up, the driveway was empty. All the cars were gone. Just like the note said, they were already long gone. The pit in my stomach only grew deeper. It was all so carefully calculated, so perfectly hidden from me. I felt sick. I drove back home, my mind racing, full of rage and regret and confusion. I picked up the phone and called Dylan. He answered after a few rings. "Hey, man," he said, his voice tight with concern. "You okay?" I let out a breath. "No. Not even close." I paused, then continued. "She's gone. Lena's gone. They left town. She's gonna get pregnant by Ryan and—" I couldn't even finish the sentence. It was too much. Dylan let out a deep, heavy sigh. "Damn, man. That's brutal. What are you gonna do?" I didn't have an answer. I was lost. Completely adrift. "I don't know, Dylan," I admitted. "I honestly don't." We cracked open a few beers, just sat in silence for a while, letting it all sink in. Eventually, he looked over at me again and asked, "So what now, man? What are you gonna do? For real?" I didn't lift my eyes from the table. My fingers wrapped around the neck of a warm beer bottle I hadn't touched in 20 minutes. "Nothing," I said quietly. "I'm not doing anything. I don't want to find her. I just want this nightmare to be over." Later that night, I tried calling her. I should have known better. When I checked, I realized she'd left her phone behind. Of course she did. Another move to cut off all communication. Another way to control the situation and keep me in the dark. Out of pure instinct, I looked through her messages, hoping maybe I'd find something. Some explanation. But everything looked normal. Too normal. And that made it all feel even worse. Nothing seemed out of place, just the usual chats with her family, updates on how her mom was doing. But underneath it all, I could feel the phoniness. It was all a damn performance. That weekend, I didn't do much except sit with my anger, letting it build. It gnawed at me minute by minute until I felt like I was going to explode. I kept thinking about the betrayal. The lies. The way they played me. My resentment toward Lena and her family only grew stronger. I didn't know if I could ever look any of them in the eye again. I was in disbelief. Lena, my wife, had been sleeping with Ryan, her own brother-in-law, for months. The excuse they gave about him being too anxious to have kids was just pathetic. They'd been plotting behind my back the whole time, and I'd had enough. I couldn't stay wrapped up in their toxic drama any longer. So I decided it was time to vanish. I bought a ticket to Canada, packed up everything I owned, and sold my car. The lease on the house was covered for another 5 months, so that was one less thing to worry about. I sold off most of the valuable electronics and gathered up as much cash as I could. I drained both my personal and joint bank accounts. I wasn't going to leave her a single cent. Every card was canceled. Insurance policies? Changed. I completely cut Lena off. I had enough money stashed away to keep me afloat for 4 months. Just to be safe, I asked Dylan if he could lend me a little extra. He didn't even think twice, just told me to look after myself. "Whatever you need, man. Just keep me updated," he said. I knew I could trust him. I even took Lena's phone with me when I left. Before walking away from it all, I quit my job and made it clear I didn't want to hear from anyone, especially not her. The betrayal was too deep. Then, about 3 weeks into my new life in Canada, I got a WhatsApp notification on Lena's phone. It was from a group chat called Baby. I paused, thinking I'd ignore it, but my curiosity got the better of me. So I opened it. And that's when I saw the message that hit me like a punch to the gut. It was from Tessa. "It's finally happened, family. After more than 25 tries, we're finally having a grandchild." I tapped on the photo sheet attached. There was Ryan, grinning like a fool, standing beside Lena, who was lying in bed wearing nothing but her underwear. It was obvious they just slept together. The next image? A pregnancy test. Lena was expecting. And the father? Ryan. My entire world just shattered. I couldn't even process what I was looking at. Rage. Grief. Shame. It all came crashing down at once. But there was no going back now. I was thousands of miles away in Canada. There was no way I could ever be near her again. Not after all of this. The chat didn't stop. More messages rolled in. "Congrats," from Tessa. "We finally did it," from Ryan. And there was Lena, smack in the middle of it all, enjoying a life that didn't look anything like the one I used to know. I tried to push it all aside. I started job hunting in Canada just to keep my head busy. Thankfully, my background in engineering and knowing a few languages helped me land a spot at a small factory working in the warehouse. It wasn't glamorous work, but it kept me going. And honestly, it beat being surrounded by lies and heartbreak. A week into the job, I woke up one Sunday morning to a message from Lena on her phone. She wrote, "Love, I'm home. Everything went well and I'm pregnant. Come soon. I have something to tell you." I stared at that message for a while, just stunned. The nerve. After everything she'd done, she really thought I'd just show up? I didn't reply. I spent the day wandering around Toronto, trying to clear my head, doing everything I could not to think about her or the wreckage she left behind. But then more texts came in. Darling, come home. We need to talk about this. Also, the accounts are empty and none of the cards are working. I need money for groceries. I ignored those too. Let Ryan and that bitter old woman she calls family take care of her. They could pay her way, not me. I kept walking, searching for some sense of peace. But her messages were relentless, like a thorn constantly poking at me. Then came the calls. Her name, Tessa's, even Ryan's kept popping up on the screen. I declined every single one. But the calls and texts didn't stop. All afternoon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. One after another, more messages, more missed calls. Lena, Tessa, Ryan begging for a response. But I couldn't bring myself to care anymore. That's when I received a call from my father. I wasn't expecting it, but his voice on the other end of the line caught me off guard. Ethan, he said. His voice tense, we need to talk about this. Your mother's worried about you. Why are you doing this? Why are you ignoring Lena? I didn't know what to say. I hadn't even spoken to him in weeks. Dad, just stay out of it. I can't do this anymore. I'm done with all of them. He was quiet for a moment. Ethan, this is a family matter. Don't make any rash decisions. You need to come home. Home? I thought. The home they destroyed? I didn't want to go back. But my father, ever the voice of reason, kept pushing. Son, think about what you're doing. Your mother wants to help you through this. We can fix things. Fix things? There was nothing to fix. Lena had made her choice, and so had I. I wasn't going back to that. I ended the call, but the message was clear. Even my father was trying to get involved now. It had been days since I'd spoken to anyone in my family, and I wasn't expecting him to reach out so soon. Then 2 days later he called again. This time I explained the entire situation to my father, from the betrayal to the message Lena had left me. Then I shared the images of the WhatsApp chat with him. At first, he seemed incredulous, like he couldn't quite believe what I was saying. You're telling me she was with Ryan? Your brother-in-law? He asked, sounding almost confused. Yes, I said firmly. She's pregnant by him. It's true. There was a long silence before my father spoke again. I can't believe this, that bitch. Ethan, stick to your decision. You're better off without her. I am with you, son. Screw that old mother-in-law and screw that bitch wife of yours. I got your back. If they call again, I will deal with them my way. Yeah, I know, I replied. I'm not going back. I don't want to deal with them anymore. I told him that I'd be bringing him to Canada as soon as I could and asked him to block Lena from contacting him. I didn't want anything more to do with that side of the family. For the next 14 days, I turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear from anyone, Lena, her family, anyone. I bought a new phone once I was settled in Canada and I set all my social media accounts to private. I didn't bother removing Lena or her family from my friends list. I just hid them. I didn't need their messages haunting me anymore. One day, I received a message from Dylan, my closest friend. He told me that Lena had gone to see him, desperate for answers. She showed up at my door. Ethan, Dylan said. She asked where you were. I told her she could have asked you herself while she was busy screwing her brother-in-law. Then I closed the door on her and threatened to call the police. Hearing that made me feel a little better. It was a small sense of justice, knowing that someone had stood up to Lena on my behalf. Dylan said she was a mess and I wasn't surprised. She had messed up and now she had to face the consequences. After about 2 weeks, I turned my phone back on, but what I saw made my stomach turn. Over 120 messages and missed calls. Most of them were from Lena. Her messages were full of pleas. Ethan, please, I still love you. This means nothing. I want to give you your first child. This is for my sister. Don't ignore me. Please answer. I love you. Her voice in those audio messages was shaky, full of desperation, but I felt nothing. My mind was made up. Then came the texts from my mother-in-law. She was absolutely livid. Called me irresponsible, accused me of being selfish and heartless. She warned me I was about to destroy her grandchild's future. Said Lena had been losing weight from all the stress. Eventually, things got so bad they had to admit her to the hospital. The doctor said she had a nervous breakdown. I still didn't care. I blocked Margot's number without a second thought. I stopped replying to anyone. And as the days passed, little by little, I started to feel like myself again. My dad moved in with me, and honestly, having him around was a huge relief. He was still adjusting to life here in Canada, but he was doing all right, all things considered. I managed to land a better job, something that finally paid enough for me to live comfortably. For the first time in what felt like forever, things actually started looking up. And eventually, something happened I never thought I'd see. I got approved for permanent residency. I had built a whole new life from scratch. After I found a good lawyer, everything started falling into place. I filed for divorce and Lena got served pretty quickly. We included a handwritten note from her where she admitted she had voluntarily walked away from the marriage. We also submitted a bunch of her WhatsApp messages as evidence. My lawyer pushed for a full dissolution of marriage instead of a standard divorce. Lena kept texting me, but at that point, her words didn't mean anything, they were just noise. A few months later, I heard she'd had a miscarriage. The baby was gone. Margot tried pinning it on me, claiming my absence and the emotional toll caused Lena's depression. But then I found out Lena had actually cut ties with her own family, blaming them for pushing her to have a child with Ryan. It seemed like she was trying to shift the blame, pretend she had no part in what happened. But I wasn't buying it. Even after everything, she kept trying to reach out, kept trying to track me down. She thought maybe I'd come back. But I wasn't falling for it, not this time. Then one day, out of the blue, she video called me. I'm not sure why I answered. Maybe I was curious to see what she looked like or if any trace of the woman I once loved was still there. But when her face popped up on screen, I could hardly recognize her. She looked drained. Not just physically but emotionally too, like life had weighed her down. It was clear that the guilt and everything she'd done was finally catching up to her. She tried to apologize right away, but I shut that down fast. I left my camera off. I didn't want her to see my face, didn't want her to think for a second that there was still hope. I told her flat out, this won't take long. Your choices define you. You made a decision that you knew I was completely against. You mistook my love for obedience, and I'll never let that happen again. Who knows, maybe by now we could have had a child together. But patience is a virtue, and you didn't have it. And as for your mother, Margot, she's still alive, unfortunately, and something tells me she'll keep hanging on. But when her time finally comes, I hope she suffers. I swear, when she dies, I'll find her grave and piss on it. You and your vile mother destroyed my marriage. That's on you, and you'll carry that for the rest of your life. I paused for a second, just to let it hit. Then I finished, I've started dating again, and soon I'll move on for good. I'll never forget you, and I promise I'll never forgive you. And I truly hope your mother never gets to meet a single grandchild. Life gives back what you put into it, I'm reaping what I deserve, and so are you. She started crying, and honestly, I felt nothing. Completely numb. Then she said something I didn't see coming. During her surgery, the doctors had removed her uterus, she'd never be able to get pregnant again. That hit me. Not because I wished that kind of karma on her, but because, damn, that's a heavy price. Still, it wasn't my burden anymore. I ended the call without saying another word. That was the last time I ever heard from her. That was back in 2018. Since then, I've been living in Montreal, trying to put all of that behind me, her, the chaos, the pain. It's been a slow road to recovery, but it's one I had to take. The divorce finalized without much drama. We didn't have a lot to divide. I was ordered to pay alimony for a year, and that was that. Then came 2021. The world shut down, and honestly, everything started to feel like a blur. The days just blended together. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. But at this point, none of that matters. It all feels like something out of a novel, like fiction. And truth be told, I wish it was. Thanks for listening. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.